I think that we can agree that this final session of this conference has given us a lot of things to think about as we head back to work. Um, and I think that, well, each session has been very insightful, not just today, but also yesterday. And each one has offered very diverse perspectives, but also very practical ideas on the way forward. So we hope this was inspiring to you. We will now have some final remarks. First, we'll hear from Andrea Watkins, who is the RSH Technical Director. Andrea is a Principal Consultant in the Safeguarding Team at Social Development Direct. With a background in social care and child protection, Andrea has extensive experience providing technical assistance, investigations, training and capacity building, policy development and strengthening, and institutional learning. Now, after Andrea, we will have closing remarks by Wejdan Jarrah. Wejdan is an experienced humanitarian and development leader with a master's degree in psychological counseling and over 15 years of experience in working in the nonprofit sector. She has expertise in a range of areas, including program delivery, grant management, organizational development and culture. And Wejdan was the RSH MENA regional representative, and from 2023 to 2024, she was the RSH Global Delivery Manager. First, over to you, Andrea. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Fabienne. Thank you to everyone, our audience, our panelists, and our interpreters for being here for what has been just an insightful 2 days. And it feels as if in many ways we are only just getting started. But nevertheless, as we reflect on the past 2 days, I'd just like to revisit broadly what we've learned, although there has been so much that I will not be able to fully encapsulate into my remarks. But I suppose in thinking about in 2018, the Safeguarding Summit marked a turning point in our collective fight against sexual exploitation, sexual abuse, and sexual harassment. And since then, it's clear that we have made a lot of progress, but the need for continued commitment remains clear. The diverse range of experiences that we've heard about over the past few days from our panelists, our keynote speakers, and from you, the audience, has given us a great deal of thought and indicates that great achievements and strides have been made, but there is still a lot of work ahead of us. Each of the 4 workshop sessions has brought out some very common and central themes. The SEAH is a deeply intersectional issue. And whether we're talking about children, individuals with disabilities, LGBTQI plus communities, or racial or ethnic groups, it's clear that the risk of exploitation and abuse is amplified for individuals who are living at the intersection of these many forms of marginalization. And these discussions showed us that we have to go beyond the traditional approaches and look deeper at how power imbalances, cultural bias, systemic inequities perpetuate harm. We explored the barriers to reporting that are still pervasive. I was, however, encouraged by the work of the Closing the Accountability Gap in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh that we heard about yesterday, a program that I was actually privileged to visit in June of this year. And this project is an example of, like many locally led, community-driven solutions that have helped to address reluctance in reporting SEAH within the harsh conditions of a refugee camp. Those of us working in this sector must strive to accelerate the pace of change. Our conversations have reminded us of the importance of inclusive responses, not just in theory, but in practice. It's not enough to say that we support survivors. We must ask ourselves, are we truly designing accessible, inclusive pathways for reporting? Are we embedding a mindset of prevention across the delivery of programs to avoid SEAH from happening in the first instance? Are we leading by example to embed meaningful culture change across our organizations? And until all of us can answer yes, more work has to be done. As we discuss, this requires collaboration and partnerships with communities and civil society organizations at the forefront. And we have to be intentional about co-development. The work of Hiawat in Ethiopia and RAP in Nigeria as RSH local affiliate partners are inspiring new models of locally led programming. The research that Terre des Hommes has discussed in the area of localization and the standards that were discussed also offers a great deal of promise. There are a number of useful tools and helpful advice outlined in the Leadership and Culture Change panel that you have just listened to that will help all organizations embed SEH awareness no matter what your starting point is, and ensuring this becomes integral to the life of the organization rather than just an add-on. So as we leave today, I want to emphasize that our work does not stop here. Each one of us has a responsibility to take action to ensure that the insights and lessons that we have learned are actually translated into meaningful and sustainable changes. Whether it's updating our policies to be more inclusive and also making sure these policies are actually enforced, improving access to services, being more mindful of language inclusivity, embedding survivor-centered responses, and advocating for sufficient budget to properly resource SAH initiatives. We each have a very critical role to play. So I'll leave you with this thought. How can we individually and collectively ensure that we're breaking down barriers, that we are reducing power imbalances, and making the prevention of SCAH in every space that we operate? And we make this a priority across every single thing that we do. And this has to start and begin with us. The work that we've heard about from our panelists and the ideas that you as an audience member have been sharing with us. And I know that you've also been sharing additional tools and other resource documents. Again, just shows how far we have come. I hope there is something that you have learned across the 2 days that has inspired you, that continues to motivate you to do what you were doing, and that you will take this learning back to your organizations and share this learning with other colleagues. So thank you so much again for joining this conference. And by attending, you've shown dedication and a clear commitment to the prevention of SCAH. And let's continue this important journey together. Thank you very much. Over to you, Fabienne.
Thanks for your inspiring words, Andrea. Wejdan, would you please share your final reflections on the conference with us?
Thank you, Fabienne and Andrea. I think it's not good that you called it final reflection because it's not a closing remark, it's what's next. So I was just thinking and reflecting since the inception of the Safeguarded Resource and Support Hub. The world has witnessed escalating in humanitarian needs. Today, over 122 million people are forcibly displaced due to the conflict, violence, and human rights violations. This includes 68.3 million internally displaced persons and 37.9 million refugees, many of whom reside in unstable, high-risk environment. These figures not only highlight the humanitarian crisis, but also underscore the urgent needs for comprehensive and contextually appropriate safeguarding measures. When I was thinking, of the, I couldn't call it closing the session. I thought of one of the Resource and Support Hub webinars last year around safeguarding in faith communities. It was evident that religious leaders from various faiths emphasized the importance of safeguarding their own people. Notably, none suggested that religion itself was causing harm. Instead, they discussed how safeguarding is embedded in their own doctrines to ensure individuals are treated with dignity and respect. This prompts us to consider, before establishment of the humanitarian system, were we safeguarding our people effectively? And if not, what should we be doing differently now? Civil society organizations have played a role long before the former humanitarian and development systems were established, and they will continue to be critical actors even after other stakeholders leave. Safeguarded Resource and Support Hub sets the stage for the cultural, then incremental, and a step for transformational change. So safeguarding is both the right of the civil society and their organizations, and its responsibility. However, attention to their needs must extend beyond minimal requirements. Safeguarding must be integrated into their advocacy for localization and locally led initiatives, despite the increasing scale of vulnerability. I think safeguarding efforts remain underfunded and often deprioritized in response plans. When resources are made available, they frequently fail to reach local actors. Current humanitarian funding models allocate only a small fraction to safeguarding, with even less directed towards initiatives led by local organizations, the very group on the front lines on these crises. These organizations are not only just implementers, these are integral parts of their communities, deeply connected and attuned to the local context and needs. However, safeguarding is not merely a project or compliance requirement, by the way. It's a fundamental responsibility to ensure that every individual who engages with the humanitarian or development work is safe and respected. For civil society organizations, their role extends beyond even service delivery. They must spearhead the cultural shift that our colleagues just spoke about, that is necessarily to make safeguarding genuinely inclusive as the eyes and the ears within communities. CSOs understand local contexts, and they can adopt trauma-informed approaches that honor the unique experience of those they serve. However, they require more than just funding. They need inclusion in decision-making processes, with voices that shapes strategies from the outset. I'll end up by saying different messages for donors and INGOs. It's crucial to shift power towards local civil society organizations. This involves enhancing partnership, changing practices to ensure that they are designed for longer term and sustainable impact. INGOs should simplify requirements and offer institutional capacity rather than one-off training sessions. Donors, as power holders, must push for the organizations of partnership approaches and civil society to support civil society organizations. As we look to the future of those even trained by the resource and support hubs, mentors, staff, CSOs, you are champions now within your respective organizations and communities. You drive safeguarding initiatives forward, ensuring that they are integrated into everyday's practices and advocacy efforts. Your role as champions involves promoting awareness, managing incidents, providing guidance, and ensuring ongoing training to your own organizations. If we are serious about safeguarding, it's the time to rethink our approaches. To partnership and funding, we must transition from top-down decision-making to shared power structures. Mechanisms must be put in place to hold ourselves accountable, not just for a project delivery, but for upholding the dignity and the safety of every individual we aim to serve. Lastly, civil society organizations, you are leaders within your own communities. How will you leverage your unique position to advocate for inclusive and trauma-informed safeguarding rooted in your local realities? INGOs and global actors, will you transform your approach to build the genuine partnerships with local actors? And how will you ensure your commitment to localization and locally led development goes beyond policy into practice? And lastly, for the supporters and the donors, what concentrate steps you will take to fund safeguarding as the core responsibility rather than an add-on? And how you will ensure your investment support long-term capacity building rather than short-term project cycle. Safeguarding is not a checking the box. It's a commitment to dignity and accountability. It's shared responsibility demanding collective action. Let us ensure that these conversations do not end here. And let us all be the champions. And it's not the end, it's what's next. Thank you very much for creating this space for people to come for the last public event and for giving me the opportunity to reflect. The change we seek will not occur through words alone, but through our collective actions starting now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wejdan, for your powerful messages. We have now come to the end of the RSH conference on what's next for safeguarding against SCAH. I would like to thank all the speakers and all those who played a role in organizing this important conference. And a special thanks to you, audience, for your active listening, your solid questions, and for sharing your own perspectives and experiences with us. After this conference, you will receive an email with a link to all the resources that were discussed during the conference. And for now, I wish you goodbye and take care.